Welcome to the How to Interview a Real Estate Agent podcast with your hosts, Jesse Madison and Shannon Adams.
Let's get down to the nitty gritty. Let's do it right now.
Let's do it.
Okay, so we were talking about, hello everyone. This is a...
We got a case of the giggles this morning.
Yes. So my name is Jesse Madison, and I'm a real estate broker here in Orange County, and this is Shannon Adams. And we are here today to tell you a little bit about buyer's agents. And when you interview buyer's agents, some of the things that maybe you should ask them, some of the things that most people don't ask or don't know to ask. So this is kind of a general overview for buyer's agents. And Shannon, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's important. A lot of people just want to hire their friend or their uncle or someone, but maybe they're only doing real estate part-time. So they really don't have a touch on the pulse of the market, what's really going on with the market. So I think it's important to know if you're hiring a full-time agent or a part-time agent. That's one thing. Yeah,
definitely. And another thing that Shannon and I had touched on, talking about this episode is the importance of knowing what's normal when you look at some of the fees that maybe a buyer's agent might charge. Like I see this all the time. We get offers for properties and the agents write in a fee that their buyers are going to pay called a transaction coordination fee.
Yes.
And for a lot of you people who are maybe looking to buy a home and don't know what this is, it's coordinating a transaction, basically handling the paperwork, managing all the timelines of when contingencies need to be removed for a purchase. Like how long do you have to inspect the property? How long do you have to make sure all your loan docs are in order, that you're going to move forward with your loan? Those kind of things, you have to sign paperwork. Removing those contingencies along the way towards closing the escrow on a purchase of a home. So this is all, and in addition to that, of course, the disclosure process, signing, receiving the disclosures from the seller, having all that signed, and then sending it back to the seller, making sure you have all the paperwork that you need and it's all in order and all timely. To me, that is something that an agent should do, because they are the one you hired to manage this process and you're paying a commission for it. Well, you're not, as the buyer, directly paying their commission in most cases. Mm-hmm. Usually it comes from the sellers who pay a commission that the buyer's agent receives to represent you. Mm-hmm. So that's part of what that buyer agent should be providing you as a service. If they're not, and they're trying to charge you a fee to do their job, is to me something that
so what Jesse is saying
right.
is that some agents, that is their responsibility, but instead of them overseeing it personally and making sure it's being done according to all the time frames that are built into the contract that you have to abide by, they turn that responsibility over to a person called a transaction coordinator. And they can walk off and go do another transaction with someone else and maybe not be following everything like they should. And now it's on the head of this transaction coordinator, and they're charging you for that. So this is their responsibility. Is it really legal for them to charge you that fee? Because as a new buyer, you do know that you have to come up with a down payment, whatever that is, 3%, 5%, 10%, whatever you can do. But there's other fees that come along with that. And so some buyers don't know, there's escrow fees, title fees, appraisal fees, credit report fees, loan tie-in fees, a lot of other fees on top of that 5% down payment. Right. So you want to make sure that you have the cash in hand when the time comes when that transaction is going to close.
Yeah, and if you've never done this before and you're a buyer and you are in the process of purchasing a home, this is something that I don't think an agent probably tells. I don't even know how you would approach a buyer to tell them that they're going to pay for this. I've never done that. I've never asked a buyer to pay for this. This is something that if I use a transaction coordinator, I would pay for it out of my pocket. And I have done that before when I've been extremely busy and I've had multiple homes that I'm managing at the same time. I've done that before, but I pay for it myself. I don't have the buyer pay for it. But I think that most of the time when people do have a transaction coordinator, it's someone probably who is newer to real estate and maybe doesn't know everything they have to have in order to properly manage that file. So, these transaction coordinators, that's all they do. And they know every single document you need. And it's very useful to a new agent to use a transaction coordinator, someone that's going to keep everything organized and know what to do, right?
It's not good to have one.
No, I think it's excellent.
Some agents and buyers appreciate it because it keeps everyone on track.
Yeah.
But the discussion here is that fee legal to pass on to the buyer?
Right.
And the answer is no, because that's an optional service that an agent is using for themselves. And so you're not supposed to transfer that kind of fee onto your client.
Right. It's sort of like a vendor for the agent. Like it's someone that's doing a service that the agent is supposed to do. Yeah. So it's kind of like if the agent hired an Uber driver to take you to all the properties, right?
Yeah.
Honestly, that's like an analogy.
You wouldn't give the check to the buyer.
You would. Exactly. Right. So it's kind of something that is an agent responsibility. Be careful. And you should ask an agent, hey, do you charge for transaction coordination?
Yeah.
That's something that's very reasonable for a buyer to ask, that most buyers would not know to ask, things like that. Another thing we talked about was that we wanted to touch on was
the closing statement.
Yeah.
Going over the fees.
The fees for the closing statement. So, buyers usually see one or two of these in their lifetime. How often do people buy homes, right? So, especially a new buyer, you're never going to have seen a closing statement before. Some people call it a settlement statement, or it used to be called the HUD, right?
Right.
But what it is basically an account statement that you get from the escrow company, and it basically just details all of the list of things that the buyer is selling for and that the seller is paying for.
Yeah.
And it's a line item of every single one of your fees. You can add those to the purchase price in the case of a buyer, all those line items. And, that's how much you're going to have to bring into escrow at the very end. A lot of that money is going to be coming from your loan, but everything that's over the purchase price is going to be coming out of your pocket in order to pay for the closing costs and actually close escrow. So there's a lot of things that people aren't familiar with.
Yeah.
And does your agent look at that?
Yeah.
And do they analyze it? And do they maybe see if anything looks suspicious in there? Because, some escrow companies, they make their money on some of the fees. They're referred to as junk fees. Yeah, like sometimes they'll have a fee for something that maybe they can't even explain what it is. Like, hey, what's this fee for? It's got a weird name like a tie-in fee or a service fee. Well, what did you do for, what is that? So if we see that, we can talk to the escrow company, maybe negotiate the fees down if they are junk fees, or remove them entirely. So there's a benefit to working with an agent that's very experienced that can see that. Your
agent should be willing to go to the closing table, or when you get those documents ahead of time so you know how much money you're supposed to bring into escrow, they should sit with you and go over that closing statement like Jesse's saying, because there are some fees that can be waived or reduced or shouldn't be there at all. So if you don't have an experienced agent that's going to take the time to do that, it could cost you money that really you didn't need to pay. So your agent, that should be also a part of their service. If they're thorough, experienced, they're going to do that.
Yeah. And then the other thing we wanted to talk about briefly, just touch on, is taxes, real estate taxes. So currently right now, I have a listing, and I have an agent that was inquiring about, the HOA fees. And in addition to that, she was wondering about the taxes, property taxes, and if there's Mello Roos and things like that. So I sent her a copy of the tax bill, and I told her, no, there is no Mello Roos, but there's some basic fees, and tax bills are paid annually. So they're paid every April and November. And that's usually pay half of your tax bill in April, half of it in November, and that covers your whole, taxes. Now, your taxes, you can also do impounds. You got that little pig
We've got
flying
flies around here.
So you can also pay impounds and just pay your tax bill monthly, but you have to arrange that with your lender, and you can do that in the lending process.
That's very helpful if you can afford it, because it's built into your monthly payment. You don't even have to think about it.
Yeah.
So at the end, every time there's a tax bill due, they've saved that. The bank has set it aside to make sure that you're able to pay it, and they send it in.
Yeah.
So if you can afford that additional bump up in your mortgage payment, it's worth it.
It is. It's a smart thing to do, just to build it in. Now, but what's interesting to ask your buyer's agent is if they're going to pull the taxes on the properties that they're going to show you or that you're going to write an offer on, because the tax bills are. You can just Google Orange County tax assessor, and you can pull up the taxes for any single property in Orange County. And agents should be able to access that data for you. They should get a copy of the tax bill, and it has a line item with every single taxes on that property.
School tax, additional water tax. There's a few
Fire.
city tax, fire tax that you're not necessarily expecting, but that outlines how much each one of those taxes are.
And that's how you find out also if there's Mello Roos on a property.
Yes, yes.
And Mello Roos is a tax that's the city will tax you in certain communities. Starting in 1986, they started doing this. Newer communities, some of the builders didn't want to put in like the street lights, some of the sidewalks, some of the park facilities or things like that, like the community things, infrastructure around a particular like tract or neighborhood. So they made a deal with the city, and the city said, okay, well, we'll pay for that. We'll put that in, but we'll tax people for like 25 years or 30 years that live in that home, in that community. And so you get a tax, it's usually pretty significant,
Yeah.
And it's a pretty high tax, but, people pay that for over, the lifespan of like 25, 30 years, for that community. And then once that time frame expires, the tax goes away. So,
yeah, but it's substantial.
It's pretty substantial, yeah.
Normal taxes in California are 1.0, 1.1, but by the time they add Mello Roos in some communities, it can be as high as 1.8. I've seen 1.6, 1.8. So it almost doubles your tax.
Yeah, it can, definitely. So, when you're buying a home that's maybe in a newer community, there's certain communities here in South Orange County that have them, especially the newer ones. And to know if a community has Mello Roos or not, you can just pull up the taxes and look for the line items, and it'll say Mello Roos tax or not. And then you can see exactly how much that is.
Yeah.
So,
but you also need to know that even if you're given the actual property tax bill for today, that is not your property tax bill. Because your property tax is going to be based on the new sales price, on the price that you paid for the property. So it could substantially increase. If someone's been in that house for 15, 20 years, even though the house is worth $800,000, they're probably only paying based on $300,000 what they bought it for.
right.
So now when this gets recorded with the county tax assessor, they're going to look at your house. It's going to be appraised, or they're going to use the sales price. And now they're going to go 1 times 800,000, 1% of 800,000, which in this example would be $8,000 a year. You might be looking at a bill that says $3,000 a year.
Right, and that will just be your base, right? And so everything else, all the other special assessments which are listed on the tax bill, will be in addition to that 1%.
Yeah.
So.
And what surprises buyers, Jesse, is the supplemental tax bill. Explain that.
Oh yeah. Well.
they don't expect it, and it comes in the mail. Like how much further after they close? Maybe even 2 months or something like that. 6 weeks, maybe. Yeah,
because that additional difference in your tax bill, when they do make that adjustment, you're going to get a bill to pay for that adjusted tax value from when you purchase the home until the current taxes are paid. Right. So yeah, that's a kind of it's a bill that can be very surprising to home buyers, because it only happens it happens so rarely.
Right.
And everyone's happy. Everyone's everyone's on their way. You paid for, your movers. You got everything in. You're getting adjusted, and then you get this big tax bill. You're like, "What's this? I haven't even lived in this house very long."
Yeah, it's a surprise.
So
you do get a document when you're going through the process through the escrow, and it's called, supplemental tax bill. So make sure you're reading all the documents that you get throughout your transaction, because there's a warning document that tells you about that. But it truly is a surprise to many people because they don't take the time to read thoroughly all the paperwork.
Right.
So make sure you know about that, because that could be a big surprise, especially when you're paying $800,000 when that house originally sold for $300,000. It's going to be a big adjustment.
That's right. Okay, so I think we covered a lot of good topics here, and of course there's going to be more things. We're going to do some deep dives into some of these topics on like future episodes, right?
Yeah, we hope you're enjoying them and learning from them. And if you have any suggestions or things that you've been concerned about, please leave some comments below.
Yes, please leave some comments below and let us know what you would like to hear. You can reach me. My name's Jesse Madison again, and I have a website at onepointplusrealestate.com. And my Instagram is at OC Realtor Jesse Madison. So follow me, and we'd love to interact with you. So.
And I'm Shannon Adams, also a broker, and you can find me online at my website at movetosocal.com.
Terrific. All right, Shannon, thank you. Thanks, guys. See you later.